good thing it was a B-roll. H2O AI Hybrid Cloud is an end-to-end platform that enables organizations to rapidly make world-class AI models and applications for virtually any use case. Building AI models used to take large teams of expert data scientists months or even years. With H2O AI Hybrid Cloud, an individual data engineer, developer, or data scientist can make world-class AI models and applications many times faster, rapidly putting AI into the hands of business users. H2O AI Hybrid Cloud brings automation capabilities across the entire data science lifecycle, including connecting to and preparing data, building and explaining models, and deploying and operating them. The platform also makes it easy to publish and share AI applications across an entire organization. H2O AI Hybrid Cloud runs on Kubernetes, allowing customers to operate on any cloud or on-premise infrastructure. If you're looking for a solution that enables you to put AI into the hands of every employee, get started with H2O AI Hybrid Cloud. One platform, thousands of use cases.
Welcome to H2O Live. Today's several great speakers today. The center of our attention is our AI App Store, which is the work of tireless creative work of several of my esteemed colleagues, community, and incredible co-creation from our customers and community as well. I'm showing here the power of AI is in its usage, not just in its incredible algorithms and ability to learn from data. One of the applications you're seeing here is made with Wave, our open source low-code framework, which has been a prolific way to build applications. LIBOR, as many of you know, is going away. So one of our customers and leading investment bank in the world ended up collaborating with us to figure out how many real entities are there in the document and picking out essentially what is the work needed to go and replace these pieces in entities in the documents with the right kind of alternatives. Now, of course, it's an NLP problem, as many of us know, and it's a problem that that could take years to master or lots of humans to apply. But co-creating it gets us that ability to reduce the problems that otherwise would have taken years to solve. Here's another incredible piece that comes to look at the entire factory floor and understand why a particular engine is malfunctioning, for example, and then go understand the top five factors that matter in that driverless AI or AutoML engine is behind the scenes predicting that it's likely to fail, but that's sensor 11 that's showing up as one of the top factors, and sensor 4. The idea is we want to simplify and explain AI in ways our users can consume. So to summarize, AI apps bring life to AI in ways that one can truly understand and experience. Let me walk you through why should companies care. If your existing business today is driving 100% of your revenue today, the true asset of a company is its brand and its community and its data. And if we can use AI to transform our companies to data companies, that's where the value is. By 2030, almost all our companies will be AI companies. And it is our vision to make you all AI companies and make you have that $1 trillion app stores that are powering today's largest companies. And that's where the vision to democratize AI, make this your movement, not just our movement. We are an AI software company. We partner with our customers deeply to make them AI first, make them transform their data and their incredible assets, their people, to be pioneers in their applied AI. And this started years ago for us. ML was the beginning, was ML, the assembly language of AI, and H2O's core community of mathematicians, physicists, data scientists, and Kaggle grandmasters enabled us to pick the best machine learning methods and scale them to billions of rows, not just millions, and millions of features, and try to make what would take days, if not hours, into seconds and milliseconds. And that ML engine H2O3 still powers 20,000 companies, an incredibly growing community, vibrant community of AI and machine learning practitioners and data scientists. Our Python and Scala and every flavor of machine learning frameworks have embraced our innovation. And today you will find us embedded in one of the on almost all payment systems out there to telcos, as well as insurance and healthcare. AutoML is the second generation, the leap that we observed our community taking forward. And the leap that we observed because of our open source nature allowed us to truly then get to the next phase. And that's where ability to fine tune the best of breed method, match it with the right recipe for the right problem at hand, and continuously learn from data as it's changing. That's you have experienced this through our platform, H2O AutoML and driverless AI. And how do we take from there the leap to operationalizing the applied AI? How do we bring this into the hands of end users? That is what's driving most of our customers. That is what's driving most of the transformation at our customers. And I think AI middleware is here, and that's what we are calling H2O AI Hybrid Cloud. This entire innovation, we're allowing you to create applications and transform and innovate inside and outside, to build your own app stores and build and participate in the marketplace we are building, and monetize your data and make it really bring transformation inside your organization and inside your ecosystem. That's kind of the vision we're building. And I think we're super excited to have you, the community, and the incredible power of our strong customers to co-create in this vision. So it starts with data. Obviously, making models, creating AI is at the heart of this. AutoML, feature engineering, and then powering the feature stores that need to store the features. Model validation, which is at the heart of safety in AI. Explainability, how do we bring stronger transparency to models going into production? How do we bring end-to-end operationalization of these models? But think of it as monitoring and managing the models continuously and the life cycle of them as the data is changing, and retrain them to go back to production again. App development obviously is where a lot of creativity comes in. This is where the data scientists, the developers, and the DevOps of ML comes to single place. It is not nothing without having incredible design. The AI thrives on feedback. All AI applications thrive on feedback, and user experience for AI will be reinvented to make that even more subliminal to the experience that users can have. So empathy for the customers, the users, will lead to some powerful applications. And our vision is that if we get model validation and the right data assets to play, we are able to bring some incredible power to the space. The freedom to innovate, the ability to democratize, the ability to bring that collaboration within your company and within the ecosystem of your merchants or your customers or your suppliers and your vendor ecosystem and your partner ecosystem. That's where the whole vision of AI apps and app stores comes together. And H2O is pioneering that app stores and allowing you to build your own app stores, but also participate in ours. This will lead to true business expansion across the entire generation of economical transformation that's ahead for us. And we think that business expansion within your company, growth rate is going to be directly limited by how you're using your data and unlocking that potential for data to decisions and making that a very AI-first organization is going to be at the heart of the cultural transformation ahead for most of us, including our ecosystem. Suffice to say, today we have a few great customers on stage who are going to talk about their experience. Aegon in insurance, Wells Fargo in finance, and BSMH in health. But suffice to say, starting from the customer, from the end user, how they are transforming and they're aiming to transform their user experience, their customer experience, is going to be at the heart of how H2O is going to evolve its app stores. But the app stores are coming from our incredible low-code framework Wave and powered by the AI engines that we have historically been known for. So, and of course, everything starts with domain and data. And here's where we have some incredible partners on stage later today who are powering the future of data, whether through data engineering like Snowflake or data through likes of Equifax, Experian, and Infutor and others. The way you look at this is data to actual consumption of the data, to decisions, to insights, to ability to transform your business is going to be an end-to-end, a holistic view of how AI is going to become immersed in every single application in your ecosystem. At the heart of the middleware, of course, is explainability and ability to bring that kind of transparency and ability to validate your models and keep them agile as data is changing. We think that this is going to be how AI is going to be rolled out in every organization and as well as the rest of the ecosystem. We're super excited to unveil the AI App Store and ask you to be participants in this. Is there value for AI? One of our customers recently demonstrated that billions of dollars can be saved if you use ML and AutoML, and more importantly, the features that come from them to power the transformation ahead. And we expect the app stores built by our customer AT&T are going to reach their customers as well as our customers in the future. Financial services has historically been the leader in transforming themselves with AI, and subprime credit scoring or personalized recommendations, fraud prevention, AML. We expect to build financial crime app stores with some of our co-creators and largest banks in the world and take them to other customers. And the leaders here are going to essentially be participants and build a rich culture of their own AI applications. All our businesses are moving from asset heavy to asset light, and whatever was core to our business is going to become transformed by the software and the AI movement ahead. We expect our customers to take and build app stores for themselves, but also app stores for their customers, and then build a rich ecosystem of suppliers. In closing, the power of AI hybrid cloud is allowing you to go cloud neutral across every cloud or on-prem, build rich applications, whether in finance or telco or health or insurance, and bring them to the marketplace and transform and monetize from your data. We expect the power of maker culture to not just be within H2O, but within our customers and community. And then that maker culture transforms our customers to go and power the future of AI and AI apps. It's make, operate, innovate, monetize, and transform. Our vision is to transform the universe with AI. H2O has a very iconic charter, and we are super excited. We are still very early in that journey. And most of this transformation comes through immense customer obsession that we have, but also the empathy for our customers and their journey in AI. Our app stores are actually here as a way to simplify, to reuse, create reusable recipes and componentry that allows people to build a very rich tapestry of applications and user experiences. Let me show a few of them. We started with the LIBOR application earlier. One of the powerful applications the team has been working on and co-creating with one of the customers who will be speaking later today is around transforming the ability to truly build explainability for deep black box models. Some of these models are obviously built for here's a NLP. It's a Yelp review sentiment analysis. It's a complete black box model, historically very difficult to understand. So what Agus and team will be talking about this a little bit in more detail, built was a way to transform these sophisticated neural network model to simple, locally linear models. And in the locally linear, you can absolutely pull out the importance by filters. Of course, historically, these filters are not broken down by sections of sentences and words and n-grams. What you're able to pull out for the first time almost is that ability to actually go down to the cluster of words that have that meaning that led to a bad review. People are usually want to understand how their customer experience was and how to go and change it. And I think here you're able to piece together a story from the NLP black box models and essentially triangulate and apply it for your business. One of the most popular stories, of course, is the Boston data set. Again, another Alethea. This is an app that was co-created with, it was created with Wave, our team, and Wells Fargo team worked together to build what was actually a very generalized paper that's essentially now accessible as an application. And the moment it becomes an application, obviously, you can truly see and get that reaction from the end users and how to kind of look at global performance versus local performance. Another interesting application that the team has built, and the call to action today is to go to cloud.h2o.ai. You're going to see some applications from InFuture later today. A powerful one is essentially, of course, subprime credit scoring, which is a big use case for us. I'm going to try and walk you through how driverless AI, your favorite application, AutoML engine, can be used to produce a richer explainability for your machine learning. Instead of focusing on just AUC scores, people are able to up level and talk about credit scores. And that's kind of where we want to take the conversation towards the business value of AI and not just the deep complexity, the methodology of AI. Now, of course, most of this is running on the H2O AI cloud, all of it, and you're able to kind of look at the problem we are solving in this demo is actually how do you use graph data as a means to understand cell phones and phone conversations, a means to understand credit. And the model was built using driverless AI. And you're able to kind of understand, get the report on the model, how it was built, look at good credit, bad credit, and also fairness, understand gender disparity, and explainability as well, to understand the reason codes behind why. And again, a very powerful demo for showing the end-to-end. One of the things customers are usually curious about is after deploying their models, they want to understand if the model is actually is performing very well. So let me just and the validation of the models. Just go to the App Store here. End-to-end validation of the models is going to be a very powerful need. And what happens with models that are deployed is that they end up needing care. As the data drifts, you want to be able to rebuild the model on the fly. When we click this run, you're actually launching a Kubernetes instance, a pod in Kubernetes, a container that's essentially almost auto scale, because you can essentially launch as demand comes. And you're able to truly build that ability to, of course, all the various Kubernetes on-prem and in the cloud are supported. But I think you're able to show that end-to-end in the models, as well as ability to launch at will and create that rich user experience that is needed to transform. I'm going to try and show one more piece. Let me just go, if I can pick up a validation demo here. The idea here is, as drift happens, you want your models to be rebuilt and managed, and essentially build adversarial testing, back testing for your models, and truly bring that kind of ability to kind of manage your models, allow the system manage the models for you. Model validation is very different from QA. Monitoring your models, which of course Mojos are a very, very powerful way to do that, allows you to kind of drive that same level of adoption across your enterprise. Adversarial similarity, you want to understand if there is something in your data that is different, and you want to build a lot of drift across your system. The other another incredible power that we can showcase is the integration between all the frameworks that are there, the ability to build these apps with our open source or closed source frameworks, but ability to kind of go beyond the traditional ways of understanding models to truly getting that explainability for your models. There's a Shapley's, as you would probably get it from our driverless AutoML framework. And again, built by one of our data scientists. The idea is that ability to build these apps is very easy. It's not necessarily difficult to build these apps. Most of the apps need explainability and ability to drive, for example, time series explainability, another very powerful. How do you drive? How does one understand? How does one understand models that are time series, both at a global level? How to understand Shapley better? How to kind of get that the transform features versus the actual features that you're trying to build. This is you're looking at exponential weighted moving average, the transformation that is powering a lot of the variables that are important in your data. This is again trying to do beyond Shapley. What do we do beyond explainability, the state of the art explainability? And in closing, I'm going to show how a data scientist can essentially take a simple notebook and build applications. This Wave is an incredible framework that's available for our audience, but the App Store is, as you can see, powered by, it is limited by the innovation you can bring. And this is just kind of the goes on to show the incredible prolificity with which we expect this to happen. There's a couple of 100 applications already in our app store, and we are inviting all our audience and customers and community to build and co-create with us and go to market with us. And as part of the rest of the day, rest of the hour, you're going to see a lot more of these applications that are going to help give that kind of the same level of excitement we are seeing in our experience with the models. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to give way to some incredible speakers that are after me, and we're super excited. The entire power of H2O team is behind this innovation, but it would be not wise of us to not credit the incredible community. A lot of our apps and applications have been co-created with our customers, and nothing short of part of being our team is our customer team. And on the forefront of that is Augusto Gianto, who's heads model risk management at one of the largest banks in the world, Wells Fargo. And more than that, he's incredibly prolific publisher of ideas, both on arXiv and otherwise, and a phenomenal, what I call street fighter with data and data science. And he has an incredible team that powers his experiments, and very, very highly collaborative. I often call him the Lord of all models at Wells Fargo and most of the banking industry. So without further ado, let me invite Augusto Sage. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sri. Thank you for the very, very kind introduction. I'm going to share my slide and really talking about a certain subject that we are embarking on our transformation. We call it as validation on demand, and I will speak about this a little bit and how is this connected with the journey that Sri talked about. In financial institution, when we build model, we use model very, very pervasively across our business, be it for financial model, traditional financial model, as well as non-financial models. And when we use model, we not only thinking about the performance of the model, but we also thinking very, very carefully, very thoughtfully about model safety, because model will fail, and when model fail, they can create harms or unintended consequence to the user and also to our customer. So if it's financial model, it will potentially create financial harm for the company or the customer. If it's non-financial, it can create other type of harms in terms of reputation, compliance, legal, etc. So in the heart of our AI deployment, model deployments are really in the industry call it model risk management, but really at the end of the day, it's really model safety, how we deploy model that's safe and sound for the institution and as well as for customer. Now, we're dealing with very, very large scale. And for our case, it's thousands of models that we deploy that's in production to run every aspect of the bank. And we have to make sure that all these models are safe and sound when they are in the production and use. So we have to design model that is very, very, very well understood, and the weakness are very, very well controlled. So Sri talk about model validation. Those are very, very critical aspect of what we do. So in a banking, in a regulated industry like banking, we have teams that do model development and then independent teams that do model validation. They are separate team. In the reporting line, they are very, very separate. This team are checking and challenging each other. With that, when we deal with a lot of model and we have to move very, very rapidly in terms of deployment, and we're dealing with more than 1,000 of developer and validator. We have 1,000 of quants. We call ourselves quants and data scientists. The coordination of those are really, really critical, and the speed to get it done are very, very important. So what we're thinking about is this is what we do, is what we call it as a validation on demand, where model developer can say, test me. This is my model, test me. So model developer can choose a battery of tests that the model validator built and to test their model. And vice versa. Model development can go at any given time to go to any model to test it as well. So we adopt this approach as validation on demand. And this can be a very, very complex process in a large company, because model develop and deploy in a various different system, and we have platform for model validation as well. So the connection and the talking in terms of model development and model validation, various platform are very, very critical for us. And part of that is how do we make it happen? So we have the model development in a model development platform, and a model deployment and model deployment platform, and then model risk platform are really model validation. And with that, I put it in the picture here. Is like we have series of model, many model, and many tests done by various different groups, and they need to be able to connect, to be able to invoke on demand kind of testing from both sides. So this is the things that we thinking about. Model developer is building application of the model itself. They need to be tested. So model validation built the application for testing, that they can be invoked by model developer to run all the testings that required, so that it will comply with our standard in terms of model safety. And vice versa, model validation will be able to go to any system to connect with a certain application in the model development, and to be able to do testing as well. We put one of example of that. Sri showed it and in his presentation, the Alicia wave. The Alicia is basically is how to make a deep neural network as inherently interpretable model, a self-explanatory model, not explaining a deep network through a post hoc explainability tool to explain post hoc explainer, but really truly make a deep neural network as self-explanatory model. That is very important for model safety, because it's beyond explainability. We have to understand which region, how the model will be wrong, which area that model have weakness, and then has sufficient exposure to training sample, and so on and so forth. So we are working very, very extensively in the subject, how to come up with a self-explanatory model to really move beyond explainability to deliver, to assure model safety. So let me stop right there. I'll turn it back to the next speaker.
Thank you, Agus. Our next speaker is an incredible pioneer in healthcare. Bon Secours is one of the leading, one of the largest Catholic hospital chain in the world, if not in the United States. And Samir drives transformation there and brings, as chief data officer, is transforming the hospital. And Samir joins our rank of customers, and we're super excited to have him speak about the challenges and opportunities in transformation for healthcare, especially given post-COVID.
Thanks, Sri, for the introduction. And just wanted to point out, we well, we're partners in this, definitely not customers by any means. I think you and your team have been super instrumental in making us feel that way and setting us up for success. Give me a second while I share my screen. Sri, can you see my screen?
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So when we look at the potential of deploying AI in healthcare and the impact it can drive, the opportunity in our mind today are endless. We at Bon Secours are, and I think healthcare in general, are very ripe in this space, and we see opportunities to leverage AI and drive impact through our care continuum. I mean, it's just the opportunities is immense. What is encouraging is that this sentiment is shared across the healthcare IT sector, and organizations both small and large are doing something about it. Whether it be startups where we see a lot of movement, and tech giants who are actually doing quite a bit of work now, investing in IT, in healthcare IT technology, investing in AI, and also investing in apps. There's a substantial amount of energy investment that is going into space, as I said, and we are starting to see that resonate both in the public and private sector. There's, as you can see on the screen here, there are quotes and things that are issued in the public domain today that shows that AI is here to stay. So we at BSMH have made this a priority and have made a commitment to embed AI in different ways into the way we work, and also make it a priority and key area for our growth. While we are encouraged by the potential of AI, considering our mission and the nonprofit posture that we have in place, we paid a lot of emphasis to make sure that these programs and projects are set up for success. When we look at the bag of, for lack of a better term, AI failures, both internal to us and things that have happened in industry, we realize that for AI projects to be successful, there has to be a bit of reshuffling around what happens and how much effort and investment goes into what part of these initiatives and projects. While we realize that data and data science is really important to an AI project, more focus needs to be paid, attention needs to be paid to the user and the adoption of these capabilities. We have therefore pivoted quite a bit in focusing on the, as you can tell from the screen here, to the UI UX element and the adoption of AI capability into the workflow, because I feel that's where, in our mind, that's where the missing link is. That's where, when we open up that bag of AI failures, we start to see trends that show us that the models were great, but they were not deployed, and they weren't deployed because they weren't accepted by the business, and they weren't accepted by the business because they didn't have ways and means of fitting that into the workflow. And I think that is where apps actually come in, and building of apps around these AI capabilities actually come in. In addition to that, and we'll go to what we're doing about those apps in my last slide. We also adopted a very methodical and prescriptive approach to AI projects. This allows us to make sure that the prioritized and high-level use cases make it into the build sheet, which is really important. We felt at times that that was not a focal point. People saw a good idea and exciting thing for us builders to build and just ran with it. So we wanted to make sure that we follow the process which will allow us to think through the problem, make sure this is a problem we are trying to solve, make sure that there's agile built into how we build these projects, which the missing piece that we saw was collecting feedback as these projects get built and having a way to actually pivot around and navigate around the changes in the ask or things that we didn't understand. And then finally focusing on the consumer at the end of how, as I mentioned, this solution will fit into the workflow and benefit the workflow. In our case, benefit the patients and the caregivers. So, and that's where I think, apps come in again. It's a way for us to bring it to the masses, to ingrain the AI capability into the folks that need it most. So we at BSMH have partnered with H2O to develop our AI muscle, which includes developing the apps, which includes developing the models, and finally handing it to the people that matter the most, which is our patients and our caregivers. We have a variety of clinical and non-clinical use cases that have potential to deliver impact, which is in the form of improving outcomes and patient lives in the communities we serve. So this is a really important area for us. We do this today. We just want to do it in a different fashion now, leveraging AI and leveraging technology that exists today. H2O will not only bring us the platform where we will do our data science, but it will also help us democratize our AI capabilities through these building of apps and the app stores and a few other features that she talked about today. We at BSMH are truly excited about this opportunity. I think this is a game changer for us. We believe that the H2O team, their capabilities, their platforms, and their, I think, way of thinking through data science and an AI problem will improve our speed to market, which will allow in turn to start to deliver impact in a meaningful and efficient manner. In closing, I think what's important to recognize here is that we as folks that have been managing data and working in models have been doing this for a while, and I think we've done a good job putting things together. What we haven't done a good job in putting it into the hands of the consumer. And that's where I think this conversation, when this was brought to me, I personally was very excited to talk about this, is because I feel it's time for us to shine. It's time for us to take this capability and the amazing work that we have done in the last 20, 25 years and take it to the masses and make it meaningful and make it count. So people can say that AI is actually something which they use day in and day out, which at times I think they're starting to realize through other means, but at least in healthcare, it's not as transparent and prevalent. I'll pause there for some reactions or questions you guys may have.
Thanks, Amir. Incredible vision and execution ahead for us both together and to serve our communities better. It's our second foray into working very closely with another phenomenal community-first healthcare leader. We look forward. Nonprofits have a unique charter. They want to do good, and just kind of the philosophy with which we built H2O and our communities. And so we're super excited to be a partner in your journey. So thank you for.
You have an amazing team. Really looking forward to working with you guys and extending this relationship out.
Don't go very far because we'll see you at the panel. Introduce Hike Healthcare Life Insurance. So we saw finance, health, and life. What I call the triumvirate, the holy triumvirate. One of the powers of life insurance is you have such long-term thinking and agenda. And I think it's with great pleasure I introduce Hike, who's from Aegon and as Chief Data Analytics Officer at Aegon, and a leader in practicing analytics across decades of experience. And when he first invited me to Der Haag to present at his conference, I always wanted to have him back at ours. So it's a great pleasure. I invite Haik onto the stage. Thank you.
Thanks, Sri, for the introduction. Can you see my screen?
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you see my screen or not?
Yes, Haik. Yeah.
A presentation? Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for having me here, and it's a pleasure to present what we are doing at Aegon with H2O, but also in the broader terms with analytics and our analytics journey. To start with the journey that we have been on for analytics for the past almost 6 years, is presented on this slide, where we really started with building the skills. For me, it was important to start with capabilities and people first before we thought about really the technology, because in my experience, it's in the end, it's the people, making sure that there is an adoption, that we can integrate it into an end-to-end journey, and only focusing on technology doesn't help you that much. So we started to build the skills. We started to build an Aegon Analytical Academy to really attract good talent, to give them also a place to work in a global community. Although they work in a country unit, in the academy, they travel to different country units post pre-corona. They do assignments in different country units to really leverage best practices from one country to another. We saw that was good, but not enough, and we started in a center of excellence. And in that center of excellence, what I'm heading up, we really were focusing on how can we, with a small team, make sure that we leverage the best practices, don't reinvent the wheel, because we recognize that if there's one area where there is something global, it is around data and analytics and AI. There is no need, whether you are in the US, in Trans America, which is our brand name, in the UK, in Europe, or in Asia. We use the same type of models, we use the same type of data. So it is very easy, or in principle, very easy to have a common way of working it. The next step was really to say, hey, we are focusing primarily on the marketing and sales areas, and of course the traditional actuarial domain, but there is much more. As we digitize the organization, we have data everywhere. So what I start to push is to think about analytics across our whole value chain, which is in, of course, the marketing and sales, but also in commercial pricing, in straight through processing of underwriting. Fraud detection was already mentioned a couple of times. We built a lot of fraud models, but also straight through processing of your claims. But it's better to look at, well, if a claim comes in, that you can process it with no human interaction. But also in the more adjacent fields of people analytics, risk analytics, finance analytics, we were really able to push the envelope on working with analytics to make better decisions. That is great, but it still didn't really bring all the change that we could bring. So we started a big program called Analytics for Leaders to really engage with leadership. Not that we expect leadership to program in Python, work with H2O, but we wanted to make them aware of what is the analytical process look like, what is your role, and one of the roles is to, for instance, articulate a business problem clearly. You would say that's an easy one, but in reality it's difficult. How do you handle data? How do you go on with ambiguity in the data? How do you stimulate your team to really become data-driven and to work with use cases? That really boosted a lot of the data innovation in our organization. And what's good to see is that it is now we have a top-down and a bottom-up approach to really capture the value of analytics and AI. What I purposely left out in the beginning was the stuff around data, but now we're pushing more and more around data governance, data management, in order to be able to productionalize AI in a better and faster way. And in the same time, we are working on democratizing analytics, so really AI for the business. And what was already mentioned before, the AI apps, the AI App Store is a great way to do that, because on one hand, it makes it easier for the broader audience to adopt AI. But in the meantime, and Sri mentioned it already a couple of times, explainability, model governance. It was also mentioned by Gupta that it is really important in the financial models, it's well organized, but the non-financial models, it's more difficult. So controlling the models, also when we put them in production, when we keep an eye on the performance, the bias, etc. That is one of the things that we are really pushing at the moment. So this is about the journey, and you will see that also the type of way we're working, focus points for me and my team are really changing over the years. Well, we have applied this, like I said, in a large number of use cases in different places. So we have cross-sell models, MBA models, but also things like email routing, NLP, call reason identification, commercial pricing, straight-through processing, underwriting, etc., etc. So we have used it now across the board in a large number of things. It didn't come easy, I must say, because first of all, there's of course some resistance in the organization, but also we have a tendency, well, we are pretty risk averse as an insurance company should be, but it also applies here. In the beginning, there was some skepticism against machine learning and AI. So what I really try to push in the organization is to say, test, learn, and optimize in a very quick way. So create hypotheses, experiment with those hypotheses, share successes, but also really important, share the failures. I mean, we have learned where it does apply, where it works well, where it doesn't work well, then adjust it and scale up. So in the beginning, there was a slow cycle, and now we are getting better and better in it to run that. And with platforms, workbenches like an H2O, this is also enabling that process because it becomes easier to work with a larger group of people, to have the controls in place that you want to have in order to make this happen, in particular in a highly regulated market. One of the things that we, what I pushed in kind of 3 work streams is on one hand, developing the skills on the AI space. In the beginning, but well, it's still going on, but in the beginning it was important to really create a community of, let's say, the evangelists in this space, because we were kind of scattered of the specialists in this firm. So bring them together and really push the envelope on initiating project and not wait till we have the perfect solution, but start to trying it. And even in a lot of projects, do it simultaneously to the, let's say, more traditional methods that we use, like a GNN model or whatsoever. So it was kind of in the beginning a parallel stream, and now it becomes the leading stream. So what's ahead of us? I think it's important to a faster adoption of the successful use cases. Started showed you the journey with best practice sharing, which was really like in an environment like this, presenting a case to the community, and then someone said, "Hey, that's interesting for me as well," and they picked it up, and you started to learn, and well, slowly to move it from one country to another. The next step is that we took a use case library where I was able to collect all the use cases from the different country units, put them in a repository, what we call the library, with the contact person, but also often code attached to it and some more information about it. Still, it was hard to, well, it works, it goes faster than the best practices, but still it's hard to scale it up. So the internal app store that Sri was talking about, I think is the next step for us to really make sure that it's easier to disseminate those successful use cases in, again, a controlled way. That's related to the next point of the model management for non-financial models, where we have a pretty strong process for model validation and model management for financial models. The non-financial models, it's a little bit more in the Wild West, and we have to control it better, and we are already in the process. So from idea generation to, am I allowed to use the data from a privacy perspective? How can I use the data from a security perspective? But also, who owns the model? How do you modify the model, and how do you monitor it over time of biases, but also on performance? Then it is about democratizing analytics. So we are already working on a big training program, which is the Analytics Accelerator, where we put in some AI elements. But still, some of the hesitation in the organization is, okay, now we have the tools in the hands of people that, well, may feel comfortable about it, but we don't feel comfortable always that they have it in place. So we have a process, but also again, the App Store would really help to make things in a more secure way. And something that was mentioned by Sri, well, in some of his use cases, is the explainability of AI for wider acceptance. We already came a long way in that one, but it is still sometimes a blocker in the organization to have it. So aspects like fairness, ethics, and contestability are really important for us to bring that in. And that is for internal purposes, so that we feel comfortable when we put out a model or when we have a fraud model. But it is also important that we offer our customers clarity on which models we use, and always have what's called by the contestability, always have an option to have a human on the line to explain what's going on and why they did not get an immediately claim settlement, or why they were not accepted for a credit or a life insurance. So an exciting journey ahead. I feel that I've done now the first S-curve in our organization, going from, well, a scattered set of data scientists to a more structured way of doing it. But the real impact and the big change will come now, hopefully, in the next S-curve. Thanks. Any comments, questions?
Pretty sure we're going to see a lot of questions in the panel session, Mike. So thank you so much for being part of the journey and also being part of our incredible speakers today. Thanks, Ike, for an insightful presentation. Our next speaker is Eric Kastevich, and Eric's actually is representing Infutor, which is where they're a customer partner as well. And joining him on stage will be Michelle Tanko, who will be one of our phenomenal data scientists and product owner of the AI App Store. So with great, it's great honor to have Eric on stage today talking about how Infutor can infuse rich data into applications. Data fuels AI applications. So without further ado.
Thank you, Sri. Hi, everybody. Sri mentioned Eric Kastevich, Director of Products and Partnerships at Infutor. And Infutor, on the left, you'll see we're a company that's won awards for being a great company and having great products. In the middle, you'll see some of our clients, Fortune 100 all the way down to startup high growth companies and hundreds in between. And then on the partner side, so I'll touch on a number of partners throughout this presentation. A couple partners in particular, both AWS and Snowflake. We're happy to be early adopters and participants in their data marketplaces, both of whom are speaking after me. And then of course, H2O. So, full disclosure, we're a happy customer of H2O. Building a bunch of our models out of H2O, but also really happy to be partnered with them, and I'll certainly talk more about H2O throughout this presentation. But to kick us off, so third-party data sets help enable AI in three main ways. The first, improving model accuracy. So during the model build process, having fresh analytics-ready data improves model accuracy, and Michelle and her wonderful team at H2O have put together a live demo of this, leveraging Infutor data and other data that they had sourced. So we'll talk about this more in a moment. Second point, contextualizing and highlighting model drift. So this is an interesting one. At Infutor, we see billions of records from our clients. And out of that, we're able to ascertain that about 30% of client CRM data decays within 12 months. And so obviously consumers are dynamic. The pandemic was another unfortunate reminder that markets are also very dynamic. And so contextualizing and highlighting model drift as model accuracy and drift comes into play, but also record accuracy and record drift. Are you running a current model on somebody, from the snapshot of who they were 2 years ago? And are they different today? Would different decisions be made by that model if you knew the correct demographics of who they are today? not in the past. And that kind of gets us into continuous improvement. So as models make decisions, ultimately there's the potential for value being left on the cutting room floor. And so coming back to decisions that were made by models and revisiting those with refreshed data. So maybe because you're able to refresh your view of an individual and run them through the model, you return a different result because it's been 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and they've changed that much. Or maybe the model's changed, or maybe both. Or maybe once you've done this and you're able to move somebody through and promote them to give you the right activation information on that individual so that you can target them and engage them. And so this slide sort of graphically shows the accuracy comment I made on the previous slide. So, common we see from our partners and clients, first-party data that looks like what it looks like on the left. So maybe just an email, maybe just a street address, maybe some light demographics. And you can sort of, imagine what, how accurate a model and certainly how precise a model might be built off of a sample set of data that looks like that versus what you see on the right. So, on the left, you have the ability to link via emails, phone numbers, link those records, dedupe, but then on the right, add additional variables on that individual to give a very clear picture of who they are and give you additional variables to include in your models. I'm just going to mention quickly, privacy and security is at our core. My brevity does not suggest that this is unimportant to us. It's critically important and wanted to make sure it was addressed because that then allows us to have the largest, most authoritative identity graph. And so this slide sort of serves two purposes. One, a quick eye check for you, see how your prescription looks. And then the second is to exhibit, we've got a lot of data that can be sliced in a lot of different ways to meet your use case. 265 million US adult consumers, and there are roughly 125 million households. We have them linked together with names, addresses, referential addresses, so where have they lived in the past, emails, phone numbers, digital signals. And that foundation allows us to build on top interesting things like, I'm just going to highlight a couple here, demographic and lifestyle attributes. So another partner, friends of ours, TruthSet.io, the unbiased third party, has scored our data, puts us at the top of the class for this type of data because of our strong deterministic data from authoritative sources, which we're able to build on that data foundation, but then also things like segmentation, cluster analyses. H2O helps us here. H2O also helps us with things like AVM and home equity scores, in-market auto models, just to name a few. How we build the graph, the point of this slide is that there's a number of steps that are, to be honest, very expensive steps, but we go through those steps so that we can, through wonderful partners like AWS and Snowflake, our data can just be a couple clicks away from you. So if you prefer to go through a marketplace and not ever have to talk to somebody like me, the data is there. We have full data sets. We have free trial data sets, all available on those marketplaces. And again, really, really happy to be early members and successful members, both AWS's data marketplace and Snowflake's as well. But at the end of the day, we're kind of just a simple, you might even argue, boring data company. And it's really through partnerships like software partners like H2O, where you have cool and sexy software that really unlocks the value of this data. And so, H2O is a wonderful thought leader in pushing and evangelizing AI and the democratization of it along with data. And it's that software that really helps unlock the value of data sets like we have to offer. I very quickly am going to mention a use case because I was just meeting with them earlier this week and I thought it was relevant here before we get into a live demo. This use case is one of the world's leading financial services company. They handle millions of leads and customers each year, and they were struggling with model accuracy. And for them, again, a multi-billion-dollar company, they first were looking to acquire referential data and build a matching solution in-house so they could handle this themselves. This multi-billion-dollar company, found that both in terms of time and financial costs, the cost was too great. And so the solution was we were able to cleanse, link, and refresh data that they had to improve model accuracy, highlight some areas where it appeared models were drifting, add more variables in to tighten those models up. And a good example is this financial services company, mortgage for them, going back before the Great Recession. The presence of a mortgage on an individual almost single-handedly made or break that individual as that company handled them. So if a record came in with a mortgage, it was almost all green lights in 2006, 2007. Then 2008 hit, and if you had a mortgage, you were seeing almost all red lights and being flagged for risk as this company weighted you. We've now added hundreds of new variables to that model. So yes, mortgage is still important to them, and we have strong mortgage data and metadata on that mortgage, but also just really rich demographic information that's able to help them tighten their models and pick back up. So as their models were making kind of very strict and severe decisions on how a person's handled, coming back to them as models change and as markets change, pick that value back up and have the data that they need to re-engage those people, because they're seeing that the snapshot of that person today versus who they were 12, 18, 24 months ago is very different, and has generated a lot of wonderful new value for them. So again, third-party data sets help improve model accuracy, contextualize, highlight model drift, and that's because it's important to think about not just model accuracy and model drift, but record accuracy and record drift, right? So are you trying to use a really, really perfect model now, but the data that you're pumping through it is 2 years old and isn't performing as well because, in fact, that person has changed. And that gets into the third point of continuous improvement. And sort of with that, let's see it in action. The nice thing is you don't have to take my word for this. Michelle and her wonderful team at H2O took it upon themselves to pull in Infutor data and put together a great app and a great demo. So Michelle, I will turn it over to Sri, who I think is going to introduce you.
I'm going to go ahead and jump right in because Sri introduced me already and we're a little short on time today. So hi, everyone. We're going to look at a quick demo of what Eric just talked about. This is a demo a demonstration you can try yourself today in the H2O AI Hybrid Cloud trial. Again, you can make an account on h2o.ai/free. We see our Infutor app here, and this is going to be a data set, hard-coded data set on public data. We're not going to be showing you any customer private data today. What this application does is we took a public Kaggle data set about customer churn, and we built a machine learning model on it. The model was pretty valuable. We have the costs associated with happy customers who we lose and unhappy customers who we're not able to save. And we're able to use driverless AI to build an automated model that creates new features, and we can use this for predicting churn. We went ahead and joined this data with Infutor's data sets. And because this is a public data, we did it at the zip code level, but for your own data, this could be joined at the individual or household level for even more insights. Our new model performed better. In this case, we were able to save more happy customers. Almost 200 more customers were able to be saved. And so that allows us to have a strong business value here. This demonstration shows us how we combine both AutoML, the rapid prototyping of UI front ends, and Infutor's third-party data. So on the side here, I have all the features that were built in my model, and some of these features are a little complicated, but some of them are new ones that came from Infutor. So we're going to go ahead and look through those new features. Here I have partial dependency plots for each new feature from the Infutor dataset. And essentially, this is telling me how my prediction on the y-axis changes as the feature changes. So the average age of someone in a specific zip code has an impact on our predictions of if they're likely to churn or not. Again, we're joining at the zip code level because it's a public data set. What we can find here are new features that we maybe wouldn't have thought of on our own. For example, the age of a car in a zip code had an impact on if our customers were likely to churn or not. And this could help us with demographic information from the area. We can also, in this application, go to the Infotor data exploration, and you can look at the 4 data sets from Infotor that we used in this model. So there's information about automotive profiles, customer insights, property profiles, and demographic information. There's no private information here, so those will be null columns, but it can give you an idea of what type of data comes with Infotor and how you could join this to your own models to improve your accuracy. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Eric and Michelle. I think alternative data sets is at the heart of the matter for how we bring life to AI and vice versa. And just like Eric mentioned, data is waiting to be made alive with AI. Our vision is to raise a forest, not just a tree, which is how we essentially built most of the journey of H2O through open source. And of course, our cloud is a maker space. It's a space where we want you to come create your products, your applications, and then distribute them to the incredible ecosystem that H2O has fostered. And we are here because of that incredible partnerships. And as you can imagine, a large part of that end-to-end innovation, especially around the data side, both on the engineering side and the Kubernetes deployment cloud side, are coming from our partners. And today we have the opportunity to bring 2 of those partners to the fore and have them present how we are working together. Let me introduce, it's a pleasure to introduce Snowflake's Miles Atkins, who's a specialist in financial markets. He's been working very closely with H2O, prolific principal systems engineer, a darling of our customers, Eric Gudgeon.
Great, I'll just take over here. Oh. All right. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so I'm Miles Atkins. I'm a partner sales engineer here at Snowflake, responsible for our AI and ML machine learning partners. And so obviously H2O is a elite partner with Snowflake. Just wanted to give you a quick kind of run through. When we think of Snowflake, you traditionally think of us being a data warehouse, but we've made a ton of advancements and put out a bunch of different new features to really help that data science, machine learning lifecycle. And so we obviously have 6 distinct workloads that we can, run for you on Snowflake. We can ingest a variety of different types of data, structured, semi-structured, unstructured data from a ton of different data sources, and then obviously make that data available to a variety of different data consumers. But wanted to really focus in on, our data science capabilities and what we've started to enable to really, push this data science workload forward for us. We can do actually a ton of things related to the machine learning lifecycle just inside of Snowflake. And what customers really love about this is our first features that we put out were really around, built-in security, governance, query performance. And so as those kinds of topics, really come to light as, there's more, big headlines about, data security, that kind of thing. Our customers are really loving that we've built this sort of data bank where, they know they can put their data in, and we've built the entire suite of security and governance, into the fabric of our offering. And so when it comes to data prep, there's nothing stopping you from doing data prep, feature engineering inside of Snowflake. We just came out with what we're calling Snowpark and Java UDFs, where instead of having to write a bunch of nuanced code in SQL, and it can get pretty complicated when you think about nesting different queries together, we've given you the ability to program in your language of choice. And so right now we have Scala and Java available, where you can type in those languages and we'll convert your code into SQL, which our engine can then run. And then for UDFs, we actually give you the ability to run and create your own custom Java code, and then execute that inside of our SQL engine as well. And so this is really opening up a whole new avenue of how you interact with our platform, which is meant to attract a lot more of the data engineering, data science personas. And then we have a bunch of different other capabilities. Obviously, for pipelines, we have streams and tasks. And so if you think of, Apache Airflow or some sort of just, change data capture mechanism, we have all of that in-house, so you can manage and automate a lot of your processing, maybe for, just your scoring when you have a deployment. And then, of course, what we're known for is our third-party marketplace, where a bunch of different of our customers are putting their own data up into the marketplace. Infutor is a great example of that. And instead of having to send over FTP files, emailing CSV files, you can make your data or grab data and basically just see it right in your own sandbox when you go to think about enriching your data sets, which is awesome. Now, where we don't cover, and this is why we partner deeply with H2O, is on the model training side. And so we obviously don't have any capability to, for you to train a model inside of Snowflake. And so with H2O, we have a bunch of different native connectors, that can be created to do your model training. For deployment, now with Java UDFs, you can actually take an H2O model that you created and bring that into Snowflake. And so instead of having to, move maybe hundreds of thousands or millions of rows of data across some, internet pipe to score your model that's living in some other environment, you can just bring the model to the data and score. And with that, you get to leverage, Snowflake's unlimited scale up and scale out capability. And so whether you're scoring, 20,000 rows or 20 million rows, you can get the compute capacity that you need to make that an efficient job. If that doesn't work for you, we also have external functions. And so your data might be living, inside of Snowflake. You might have some more intricate Kubernetes cluster that you're managing your H2O model on. We can set up an external function that calls that API, your model API, and basically can pipe your Snowflake data, get your model results, and send it back in one seamless fashion as well. And then, of course, for model monitoring and management, we don't have any, out-of-the-box capability for that either. But there's a ton of capability where H2O will use Snowflake on the back end as the system of record, where you still get the scaling capability and all the sharing capabilities to allow different teams across your organization see what's the performance of the model's business impact, that kind of thing. And so with that, I'm going to throw it over to Eric here, who can walk you through some of the Snowflake and H2O integrations that we have here.
You're on mute, Eric.
Oh, sorry about that. So what we're looking at here is the Snowflake application built with Wave. And what this allows us to do is to connect to Snowflake and use those powerful APIs that Miles just talked about. This means that business users can collect data, start training, or even score models directly. Now, the interesting thing we're seeing here is that you could pick the model to score directly in Snowflake at a different time, or even using some of those external functions. What ends up happening is that as we train and score, we write these monitoring records. So data scientists and business users can see if the models have finished training and if there are any errors during that training session as well. Very powerful stuff, an easy way to consume that. On the next slide, what we actually see is the ability to still use the traditional tools. So as Miles was mentioning, we can leverage things like the Java UDF and Snowpark, which are amazing technologies to scale. We will also auto-generate the notebook and worksheets for Snowflake as well. So any of the tools and any of the users that want to consume those models can still do it in exactly the same way as they did, or through the Wave application. And then when we look at the deployment parts of this, the idea behind Wave is to really unify the entire experience for any of the users that are using the technology. So we might build a model outside of Snowflake and actually upload it as we see here. Then what we can do is we can pick how we want to deploy that model, and it will automatically upload and deploy into Snowflake and be available immediately so that you can score at any of your data at scale. And then of course, any of the reporting, any of the drift detection that we do with Snowflake as that system of record is picked up straight away. A very powerful combination together. So with that, I'll just pass it back to Christoph to talk about the AWS piece as well. Thank you.
Welcome, Christoph.
Thank you. Thank you, Sri. Thank you. I'll just start video as well. And welcome to H2O Live. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And it's truly an honor to be on this journey with H2O in partnership for democratizing machine learning. And what I brought quickly is actually ties very well to in this journey to put AI into the hands of every customer. And then as actually Samir mentioned, that around 2017, we were pretty good at putting things together. Customers started to become pretty good at putting things together. So science leaders then actually made machine learning applicable for product managers who built into their products. But then we see an evolution that is unfolding with first in this current wave, vertical leaders wanting to consume bespoke, tailored applications. And also we see another wave that actually line of business leaders such as CFO automation, CMO automation, wanting to consume AI applications. So that's why we are particularly excited to be in partnership with H2O, in which AWS simplifies the deploying, the managing, and connecting the data to the H2O AI Hybrid Cloud. So using Kubernetes on AWS is really taking off, making the operation and the innovation in the machine learning lifecycle, being able to connect to our wonderful partners, Snowflake as well, which we co-build a lot together as well. And then with AWS's data lake and lake house architecture, which I will expand a bit on how can customers build a modern data architecture that they can tap into with H2O, or as well as ADX, the AWS data exchange, where if they would need, we saw various examples where they would need additional accuracy, and then they can just reach out and enrich the data on which they can train their models. And so with this, and like what happened in the past is that, especially in the past years, customers got exposed to an unseen and unforeseen amount of data, and they sit mostly in different silos. And then those silos came with various problems, that they were unavailable, the authorization problems, or they were not necessarily at the right price performance level. And so for that, they would customers really wanted to have a ability to use the right tool, whether it be log analytics, or whether it be documents, or whether it be draft data, and then to move data between them, as we call them at the periphery, or to move them from the periphery into the data lake, or from the data lake outside to these. And that's a modern architecture that we call the lakehouse architecture. So in the lakehouse architecture, customers build scalable data lakes with using these purpose-built data services with seamless data movement and unified governance at the right performance, price-performance ratio. And so with this ability, the machine learning capabilities of H2O are tapping into these established methodologies and infrastructures, manifesting the H2O and the AWS partnership with the fast and simple implementation using managed services, either with the data or even under the hood, using Kubernetes and the entire AWS service suite. And also the third piece is that there's a tremendous synergy in the additional partner-to-partner capabilities. So as for example, as AI apps, as I've mentioned, become more relevant for line of businesses, which are like requiring automation, then connecting the partners to partners in AWS, more than 100,000 partners, like from RPA or intelligent process automation partners with H2O, or the system integrators bringing in additional apps in the app store. The opportunity is endless to give now really practical, useful, rich, and powerful solutions to the increasingly diverse customer needs around machine learning. So with that, we're really excited about onboarding using more of H2O Wave, H2O3, driverless AI, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions in the chat panel discussion with my peers. Thank you.
Thank you, Christoph. It's a pleasure to see such incredible, insightful presentations preceding the panel. And let me invite the speakers to a panel, which would be I'm expecting a raucous discussion and point counterpoints here. Folks haven't met Dave Ferber, one of our earliest supporters, customers, and from Equifax. And let me invite the team onto the Zoom stage. Just trying to see if Agus is, please turn on your videos, and we'll kick off a great discussion here around data. Dave, tell us about the transformation that's happening at Equifax, obviously, both with machine learning, AI, and all the models. In many ways, banks and data companies, the earliest data companies, came from the same genesis and roots as Equifax. And love to hear your story and what you're doing with H2O and the transformation there.
Yeah, thanks, Sri. Appreciate you having me. As a lot of you know, Equifax has been going through a major technology transformation. We've invested a lot of money to make a lot of our data platforms cloud-based. And so with that, enables a lot of additional capabilities that we're really looking forward to taking advantage of. And a couple of cool things that we're working on is basically taking our analytical ecosystems and bolting them onto our decisioning platforms and enabling AI through that channel, where our customers can access our data, develop their decision strategies, deploy those into production, kind of what you were talking about earlier, Sri. And as decisions are running through those platforms and feeding them back into our analytical ecosystem, where we have tools like H2O and driverless and Wave funneling back into that data, And then they can monitor those decisions over time and decide whether those decisions are optimized the best way as they mature, and allowing the AI to modify those strategies and redeploy. So we're constantly cycling through. We call that the feedback loop. So it's a really enabling, with data coming through the cloud, our customers' transactions, any other data that we can feed in, really putting it into that environment and allowing the democratization, our customers and our internal users to do more with that data and get those insights as fast and nimble as we've seen. So very exciting times at Equifax with a lot of that technology transformation and enabling our AI democratization.
Thank you so much. Gus, I wanted to kick off the question that models, I mean, all models are wrong, some models are useful. How are we, what's the data science got to do with this? Not all our customers, many of these, it's incredible to see the rich tapestry here. Many of you are customers of ours together, and some of, I just realized Equifax is a customer of Infutor. All of a large chunk of the demos today you saw on both Snowflake and AWS. So there's a lot of really the rich ecosystem here. So what is it? Most of us can't hire all the Kaggle grandmasters because they're already hired. So how does one go about building great models and deploying them and taking them to production?
Sure, you employ half of them. That's the problem.
Sri, for us, the question for me, right, Sri?
Yes, probably others would jump in.
Well, for us, is building great model is probably not the most difficult one. It's probably among the easiest one. Build a great model. Building great model that will be safe when we deploy. That's not an easy one. Because we know some of you talk about data-driven environment changes. COVID-19 is an example of that, right? That changed everything. So understanding how the model will be wrong and what to do about it, how to manage it, and anticipate. So when you design the model, you also testing that. So that's it's really in the heart of what we do. Is really deploying model that's safe. For that is a few things. Start from the data side, right? So what data can we use? We're talking about privacy, about bias in the data, what field that we can and we cannot use. For us in the banking industry, demographic, no. You cannot use demographic because that's discriminatory, right? So data government piece that you can do and what you can do and you cannot do. And then when it built into the model side, then you're talking about what can go wrong with the technique, the algorithms, and what kind of bias that algorithm will make it worse. So how to control that. And then talk about after that that's just the beginning, and then how you test it for safety and soundness, model robustness, and all of those things. In the heart of that, of course, the explainability are so important. Transparency of the model, interpretability is so important because that is the gate to all the things that we worry about and model safety. Then some of you talk about model deployment, monitoring. All the things that we worry during model development need to be done as well during model monitoring as well. So having people, teaching people to understand, you call it street fighting, for people that just come from out of school, that learn how to use algorithm and build model, train model. Real world, it's not like that, okay? Real world, you're dealing at the end-to-end and how when the model will be wrong and understanding how the model will be wrong. So changing that mindset, making people talk about model risk, thinking about it's not about AUC, it's not about prediction error. That's an outcome, that's the easy part, but how to anticipate the unintended consequence and how to do a failure mode effect analysis doing model safety so that we can deploy model safely to the customer. So that kind of training that we have to provide to our people beyond that. And of course, in our situation is really multidisciplinary, right? Because when it comes to deployment, it's the software engineer. So we have a lot of problem too when software engineer moonlighting to be a data scientist. So we have a lot of problem with that because they are not really trained in terms of model safety. So those kind of education that we have to do internally.
A lot packed in that answer, Agus. I'm going to riff off of the COVID. I think one of the things that we spoke about in a previous talk was COVID exposed the lack of imagination in testing models, if you will, or validating models in looking for different unique scenarios, right? Sort of. So, Samir, how has COVID transformed practice? And that's probably a question across the board for most of us, but specifically you're in healthcare. How has that changed? How you're bringing transformation inside SMH?
Yeah, I personally think it was COVID was all about change. I think the problems that we saw, whether it be data related or the speed at which we have to deliver analytics and data science in general, I think that changed very quickly for us. So we had to very quickly pivot out of things that we did in factory mode and get into, to your point, Sri, innovation and get into some uncharted territory. So the data that we didn't think was important all of a sudden became really important for us. So making that available and quickly making meaningful use of that is what, in my mind, was most challenging. It just came like COVID did for other things. All this came out of nowhere. So the struggle, I think, for healthcare was really pivoting to that change and quickly reacting to, what's needed now.
Mike, I know Aegon was preparing for this as a whole through almost early interest in this two-part question. One, how things have changed, both with the vision of app stores and apps and microservices for the organization. And there's a question from Vincent in the audience who said, what does that mean for the role of data scientist in the next 1 to 5 years?
Yeah, good question. Well, maybe first come back to your first question about what is the biggest challenge for me. It's apart from the few things that Agus mentioned, it's really the end-to-end integration. That's for me the way to get models accepted. And one of the examples that you mentioned in the beginning is to start with business rules, then you have a simple model, and then you have your more complicated model. Getting the feedback loop from people that use the model, that brings eventually the trust in the models. For instance, we have, of course, used front models. I rather call it models that highlight suspicious claims, because you have to have, if we flag it as a fraudulent case, we have to have someone look at it from a human perspective to see whether it's there. So that's one addition to the things that Agus mentioned. In terms of the COVID part, I mean, of course, we are in a life insurance business, and that has hurt us a little bit because of the higher death rate, so to say. On the other hand, if you look more at the commercial side, it has really accelerated a lot of the stuff that we had already been put in place. So we already pushed our digitization and the use of data for it quite a bit, but it was always difficult to convince the organization to work with it. With the COVID sitting, let's say the agent sitting at home, now we were able to provide them next best activities based on our models. These are the customers that you should contact. Lead prioritization, leads come in, who to follow up with as soon as possible and who not. Straight through processing of underwriting. All kinds of things that were, important, but not critical, now suddenly became important, including, I think a very important one related to the first question, is that feedback loop. So building in, I put a couple of next best activities to my agents, but sometimes it feels like it's into the void, and you need to have a feedback loop that, did we call that particular person? Did we follow up on the leads? And we pushed really the envelope on pushing that envelope to make sure that we got the feedback loop in there, and then you get the learning mechanism in place. So having a system, basically the next best activities were pushed into a system, and the agents called from that system, so we knew that it was follow up. How it was follow up in the type of discussion we didn't know, but at least we know that there was a follow-up, and we knew we could follow we could track the responses eventually. And in terms of the question of how does it influence the data scientist, I think it changes the way our data scientists should operate in the organization. 10 years ago, I don't know exactly, it was said like data scientist is the sexiest job in the world. Well, I do think that there's still a lot of potential. On the other hand, the role with, let's say, solutions like H2O, it becomes much more being the spider in the web to make sure that we see the opportunities that there are with AI. Thinking creatively about what kind of data sources are there. So it was already passed. Like what kind of third-party data can we leverage, or what kind of internal data sources can we leverage better? How do we embed it into the end-to-end process? Being the safeguard of when someone in the organization builds a model to check whether it's explainable, whether it's the fairness, the blah, 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 all those kinds of things. But that's the role, I think, much more of a data scientist, rather than starting from scratch like I did in the past and writing my own code and redoing a model that has already been done many times. I think that role will slow down. Of course, there's still room for a bunch of people that work in your company is free, but across the board at Aegon, I think it should reduce, but a lot of other tasks will come to them. So I don't see a decreasing need for them, but it's a changing role.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys saw this, but at least for the data models that were built during COVID, I saw a lot of overfitting, and I'm, at least I'm seeing across industry folks struggling to repurpose those data models because they were for such a specific case, and it absorbed all the noise in the data because we had a limited data set that was available. But I am actually seeing a lot of rework or wastage of things that were built during COVID and not being able to repurpose a lot of that.
There was an MIT Tech Review, Christoph, I'll let you comment. There's an MIT Tech Review analysis of all the models that were wrong during the COVID. So it's a great point, Samir. I think especially for banking and some of the other places, the scores, the traditional credit scores were no longer useful. So all the guideposts that historically we could use were no longer available. Christoph.
Thanks. Yeah, to the feedback loop that he was mentioning, and then to the model risk management and model failure handling that August was also bringing up, we see an interesting pattern unfolding that well, first of all, not only model building is sort of turning into data, like get the right data with the right intuition and business logic and the right data quality to the model, but this failure handling there's a new human in the loop role that we see. Previously, the human in the loop was primarily for increasing accuracy. We also have H2O AI service that, like, if you're not satisfied with the accuracy of your model, then the labeler, it could be sent, and then the data will be improved with additional labeling. That was primarily the human in the loop. But now there's an unfolding role of actually humans assisting the models when identifying when a model is wrong, rapidly identifying, even real time, like in contact centers is an example, immediately identifying when a model is wrong, and then triggering a failure handling mechanism when a human immediately jumps in, assists the model, and then that feedback is captured, and then that trains and further improves the model. So that model risk management and the model failure handling is becoming more and more important. Naturally, there are industries where the risk regulation and the outcomes are much more at high stake, and then there are industries where it's easier to do. But this is a pattern that is unfolding in terms of model risk and model failure management that we see from humans assisting more and more models.
3 is not only monitoring when the model is wrong, anticipating when the model will be wrong, because the output, even you don't see it yet, right? Sometimes the output, when you're monitoring, you look at the rear view mirror when your model make mistake. So I think the human in the loop is so important, because anticipation of how the model will be wrong. So this is why it's so important that we cannot use black box model, because we can anticipate how the model will be wrong, and even also creating a playbook. What are we going to do when the model will be wrong?
Yeah, AI to predict AI, right? Now, Eric, alternative data sets play a huge role in this unlocking more alpha. Of course, it brings in unexpected bias along with it. So how are your customers essentially kind of dealing with bringing the right kind of data sets at the same time being safe from kind of inadvertently bringing bias?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think touches on the points that Christoph were all mentioning is when a model has an output, what's the action that then is taken? And we were talking before about the role of the data scientist, but I think we're seeing an increase in how a data scientist fits within a cross-functional team. So helping contextualize the model through the lens of the marketer who's going to receive something, and then they have to actually go try and track this person down. So we've seen, and was using the financial services example earlier, where we previously might have talked a lot with people with the title of economists, and maybe that's given way over more recent years to data scientists who are sort of taking over, working with the raw data and building the models on top. And so I think, just as long as organizations, departments, sort of like the intra-organizational democratization of AI, so getting the other teams, the cross-functional teams, up to speed and aware so that they can also help, as Gus was mentioning, be that human to help make that real-time decision, set the playbook that helps inform the decisions being made as things pop up.
Snowflake's experiencing a tremendous growth on all fronts. Miles, what are the key data / AI questions are you facing as you're talking to your customers?
Yeah. So the main thing is, hey, we have a bunch of data inside of our four walls, right? But we have, and you have this Snowflake, you have this growing marketplace of, weather data. We have a huge COVID data set. And then, how do we, maybe it's not public, but we still want to be able to transact with our customers, our partners, and have our own little private, data marketplace, right? And so what we're seeing is really a demand for our customers to go to their customers and say, hey, look, we have our data. Go set up a Snowflake account so we can enable this secure data sharing. Because right now we're just using FTP files, CSV files. And so what we're seeing is this creation of what we call a stable edge, where customers are repeatedly, going to the marketplace and grabbing, a third party or a second party data set, over and over and over again. And that stable edge number to us says, hey, look, people, it's just not a one-time, let me see if this increases the accuracy of my model. This is now part of our business process. And so that's where we have a key metric in that stable edge that, the marketplace and our data sharing capability is actually kind of solidifying in the market.
Just democratizing data is a precursor to democratizing AI. So I think that data clouds precede the AI clouds, and the AI clouds is kind of where the road ahead is. And so we're super excited for this partnership. David, did you want to comment on the alternative data sets? So you were.
No, I was actually going to comment on Miles' point. I second that. I'm seeing our customers more and more come to us saying, hey, we're on Snowflake. Can you get your stuff there so we could share this data a lot easier? And it is actually interesting to the evolution of that and seeing the demand grow, to your point, Sri. So yeah, I was just going to second that. But as you know, alternative data is a core part of our business model. We work with Infutor and all the other sources there, but our clients are constantly looking for the edge or the advantage to make those better decisions, and they're seeing some positives and some negatives in the alternative data space. So it's an interesting time to see that process of figuring out how it works for your market, for your customer base, for your risk level, right? It's a little different for every market.
And Sri, if I can, if David's seconding the point, I'll third the point. But the demo that Michelle showed Michelle and Eric at H2O were actually able to, via Snowflake's data marketplace, find trial data of ours, take that, with just a couple clicks, and boom, they're improving a model that's, again, matched at the zip code level. Like, we could get down to household or individual and see really dramatic improvements, but they're just sort of showcasing what an individual developer without the need of a budget can do with just a couple clicks and just a bit of time.
Incredible. There's a question from the audience about, while transparency and explainability are admirable necessary aspects of using model, what is the plan to communicate to the average consumer who's denied credit or insurance coverage or health benefits, what a complex model predicts without disclosing proprietary IP? It's a good question. I'll start answering it with one of the products that are on the App Store. Here's actually a Shapley cloud, if you will, of all the explainabilities. And what the team has put together is essentially ability to derive rules from a cluster. So they ended up clustering the Shapley. And so you can see, you can actually derive the rule from that cluster and score that. And you can also change the cluster to kind of a way to see if that is really 60 or 60 point, and what happens when you change that to 50. So you're deriving rules to essentially start understanding how the explainability works. So you can then go back to the business user with, well, this is actually what happened in this particular churn prevention use case. Simple wave application there, UMAP clustering on top of Shapley explainability. But it's a good question for both Agus and Ike, probably. So. As we come close to the end of this incredible session, we could probably go on for a very long time on discussing model validation, democratizing AI. Samir, would you have any thoughts on how the role of the chief data officers is transforming into more of a role of the person who's right next to the CEO, trying to make strategic decisions in the era of AI apps?
Yeah, absolutely. I personally think, in my role today, and I believe there was a question about this on chat as well, as to how chief data officer is involved in the deployment of these models or adoption of these models. So I think it's close to home. My response to that primarily is that, it's a team effort. I think in AI, a model, while it's being built by data scientists, needs to be, owned by the business per se, right? And I think that's where, apps and things like that come in. It gives them that sense of ownership that this is built for them and it's used by them. My role to play here primarily, once it's in motion, is providing the platform on which this data model functions, and obviously the availability and quality and the data governance around it. So that's where I see a bit of I wouldn't call it a change, but at least change in my expectations of what chief data officer does for an organization. It goes beyond just making availability of data and has some ownership on what that data means to the consumer, and goes into a little bit of explaining why the data is creating an output as a result of these models. So I think there is ownership of these models that exist even within my domain, which I think didn't quite exist in the past. I think at some point the data team washed their hands off what they did, and it was somebody else's problem.
And Sri, I'd like to jump in on that. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
On the other hand, I agree with you that the role of a data officer should be that broad perspective from, let's say, the defensive side and the offensive side of data. The risk is that it becomes such a massive job, and in particular in the regulated market as I'm in, that the focus will be on the defensive side, and the role that he can play on more the offensive side of data is limited. So I'm still sometimes in a struggle to see how can we best organize it, because sometimes to split it might also be better, because then you have at least one force that is constantly pushing the envelope on the development, and you have another force that's kind of a little bit holding back. Having it all in one basket makes makes it also easier to push it forward. So it's a little bit that, well, still the challenge of, aren't we asking too much of a CDO? Go ahead, David.
Yeah, thank you. And I was just going to go back to the question around the consumer and understanding, why they were denied credit and some of the things that are happening in the industry now to help with that, right? I think Equifax is very proud of its explainable AI and leveraging other data sources to give payment behaviors that aren't traditional credit, right? Like how I pay my cell phone bill or those types of things, and feeding that into more advanced modeling capabilities to get the next level where your risk is a lot lower. So, but the thing I wanted to highlight is that one of the things that we're working on, which is leveraging AI here, and it's a cool app that talks, it's called Optimal Path, and it allows the consumer to understand very easily, very crisply, if you pay $150 on this card, this is what we'll do. This is the optimal step in improving your credit. So giving that consumer that doesn't know credit industry or the details, a real easy way to understand, this is the step I need to take, the first step, the second step, the third step, and then the order to get the optimal path to getting that approval for credit. So a pretty cool application for AI, and it really benefits the consumer out there.
That's fine. In terms of actual transformation, of course, this space is just truly bringing value from data, and I think Hayek, you touched on it, Samir as well. Agu's incredibly insightful conversations around the Zoom phone today. In terms of mitigating risk, Agus, where do you see our space emerging from here? Hyper innovation is going to happen with app stores. It's a marketplace. And the best idea, best models. It's a model store, it's an app store, it's a data store, which is kind of why we have this incredible conversation here between the different folks. What is the kind of the key call to action to mitigate risk on this one?
From my side, Sri, is testability, right? So whoever built the model builder need to invite scrutiny, right? So invite testability. Hey, you're not only delivering model, but you're also delivering app that your model will be tested very easily. So I think that is a very, very important to have model that will be very, very testable, very easy to test. That's what we I think that will be a big progress if we can do that.
Absolutely, Angus. I think the feedback loop is critical. Otherwise, we end up building models for ourselves and not for the masses that actually use it.
I would go one step further. Right? Feedback is gold. In fact, feedback is triggering it's making new data. And that's kind of how we are in the business of making data, not just consuming data, making AI, not just consuming AI. And I think that's kind of the powerful theme. David?
I totally agree.
In closing, I would say one thing that combines a lot of us, I'll just jump from our panel of doing, making things, improvising on data, to innovating with it, to combining purpose. A lot of what we're here for is to bring change to the world using data. And data shines light where there's darkness and brings insights where we are seeking that wisdom to go and change our lives, change the world. H2O is obviously a do good company, just go do the things. A lot of the, I think Hayek mentioned grandmasters and data scientists, the incredible culture around our community of mathematicians, physicists, and data practitioners is here to power that change in the world. And we are here because of the incredible love of our customers and community, and Samir, through you in healthcare, Hayek, through you in life insurance, August and finance, and David and data. In Future, thank you for joining us today. And Snowflake and AWS, the cloud, we are very, very excited for unleashing H2O AI Cloud and H2O AI app stores. These app stores are co-creations, so it's an open invitation. The call to action is cloud.h2o.ai. It's a co-creation makerspace. And how do you be powered by H2O, powered by AI, and build a bigger economy of more equals. And that's kind of the vision. The next $1 trillion company is going to be created with AI. There's no question about that. And it could be any of the folks participating in the cloud.h2o.ai ecosystem. So thank you so much for joining us on this incredible moment for us. And we're super excited for the journey ahead. Thank you.